What's up, Duval? It's your favorite number 22, Bucky Brooks, and this is Bleav in Jaguars, a podcast dedicated to all things Jaguars. And man, we're really excited because the preseason is nearing an end. The Jaguars are coming off a real solid performance against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Saturday night, and we're going to talk all about it. And look, I want everyone to understand the preseason doesn't count, but it certainly does matter. And it matters in terms of building the positive momentum as you head into the regular season. It matters as it relates to creating the right habits that will lead you to win games and be a consistent team down the stretch. And it matters because the performances that some of these guys put on display in these preseason games will not only help them secure a spot on the team, but it helped them secure a role when it comes to what they can do within a game plan to help this team win and win at a high level. And I'm going to say this. I was really impressed with the Jaguars. I've been impressed the entire preseason in terms of what I've seen from the team on the practice field and in camp. It's not always pretty. It's not always perfect, but I can tell you the vibe is different when I walk around this team this year compared to last year and even previous years. Like, this team is really well connected. There's a lot of positivity about this team, but they're going about their business in a little different manner. Real professional, real detail, a lot of accountability and communication between the squad, not only coaches to players, but player to players. And I Bleav there's a humility about the team that is going to serve them well as we get into the regular season. Perhaps last year, they may have learned a lesson from kind of listening to all of the outside noise and all of the hype about the team and Super Bowl potential and all this stuff. I think this year they're doing a really good job of blocking the noise out. And the noise is more negative than positive this year, but really blocking that out and being really dialed in and focused to what they want to accomplish on a given day. And when you listen to the players and you hear them in interviews, it's a lot more of the being in the present as opposed to thinking too far down the line. There's a lot of conversation about improving and meeting their own quote unquote standards as opposed to the wins and losses and those things. And I would say that has been intentional, first by the coaching staff, Doug Peterson, kind of putting that on the players to make sure that they're dialed in. Talked to them on Friday about some of the stuff with the team. And that was one of the things that they wanted to emphasize, like just being on the same page, making sure that everyone understands that there's one voice. They want to make sure that they do everything the right way. They want to play 60 minutes and fight. And even though you can go hard for 60 minutes and fight and it doesn't guarantee a win, that has to be the style of play. That has to be the brand that shows up whenever the Jaguars show up. And Doug has said that the team has really responded well to the toughness and the physicality and the grind of training camp. To me, I think this team is going to be well prepared to not only have a really solid season, but to hit the ground running when they start and they kick it off against the Miami Dolphins. Doesn't guarantee that they're going to come out the gate smoking with wins, but I do Bleav this team is going to be better prepared to handle the grind of the season, and I expect that to lead to postseason, like a postseason appearance and actually some success in the playoffs. But let's talk about this game. And this game will be known as the Mac Jones game. And the reason why we want to call this the Mac Jones game is because this was an opportunity that we have been waiting to see Mac Jones as the starter of this team. Not because we expected Mac Jones to supplant Trevor Lawrence as the starter. Trevor Lawrence is the guy, he's the franchise quarterback, got his money and those things. But in a quarterback-driven league where last year almost 70 quarterbacks played and started in games, your backup quarterback is arguably the most important position on the team. We talk about 1 to 21, 1 to 22 in terms of starters. I would say that the backup quarterback is right there. Like, you could say that he may be more valuable than some of your starters because the team's hopes hinge on the play of the quarterback, and having a high-end QB2 is essential to being able to be a team that can consistently vie for titles in this league. Well, the competition going into this week or into this game was about Mac Jones versus C.J. Beathard. C.J. Beathard has been on the team for a few years. He's played 8 years in the league, going into his 8th year. He's been a solid backup who's been a part-time starter at time, but most of his years, he's been a backup quarterback. Mac Jones competing with him for that job. He was acquired via trade. He's a former first-round pick who has been a Pro Bowler. He played winning football high school, college, even his first year in the pros before he got sideways. Well, this was his chance to get the ball from the start and kind of remind us of why he was a first-round pick and why people were really excited about him during the draft. And I'm going to say, by all accounts, man, he aced the test. And talking to him prior to the game, he just talked about he wanted to prepare for this game just like any other game. Didn't want to kind of put too much on himself, didn't want to put too much pressure on it, but he knew it was a big deal as a preseason game. He knew this was an opportunity not only to earn the trust of his teammates and coaches in Jacksonville, but it was a bit of a showcase game for him to the rest of the league in terms of making it right and hitting the reset button after, I would say, a disappointing end to his tenure with the Patriots. Look, man, this dude was locked in. He was focused. He kind of had that edge to him that you love to see from players who have something to prove. And I think he came out, man, and just dazzled. People are talking about the numbers, and the numbers were like really solid. He had over 210 passing yards. He was really effective throwing the ball, efficient and effective, 16 for 23, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. But I would say it's not even the numbers. I would say the way that he played, if you're watching that preseason game, you can envision Mac Jones having to step in and start for the Jaguars, and the Jaguars not skipping a beat. When you watch them play, it was a very ball-controlled offense. It was one that mixed the run with the pass, and it played into Mac Jones' strengths as a player. When I look at Mac Jones is a guy who is a high IQ player. He's really good in terms of working off play action. He's very decisive when it comes to making his reads and throwing with touch, timing, and anticipation. And he has a live arm, an arm that is much liver than I think people gave him credit for when he was coming out. This dude spins it, and he spins it like a high-level quarterback should spin it. He showed that time and time again against the Buccaneers on Saturday night. Really impressed with his timing, touch, and anticipation, and looking at how they ran this offense, because I Bleav, without talking to the coaches, I Bleav they ran this offense and game plan as if Mac Jones was having to play a game for them. A little experimentation of, hey, if Mac Jones had to play, how would we play with him in the lineup? We saw a lot of run, complementary bootleg, and play actions that worked together. We saw multiple tight end sets. We saw a team that really kind of methodically moved the ball down the field. It wasn't kind of like the splash play offense that we see sometimes when Trevor Lawrence is there. It was more of a methodical approach that they went down the field. And for Mac Jones, I thought he managed the game at a high level. He was very efficient, completing a high number of his passes. And then he came up big when they needed him to come up big. He had 3 third and long conversions where he absolutely dropped dimes to the receiver in tight windows when you're not supposed to really convert long yardage situations in this league. He did it. He led them on a 17-play, 80-yard drive that just drained the clock and sucked the life out of the Bucs defense that was on the field. And the most impressive part of it was not just like people are talking about the touchdown to Parker Washington, which was an absolute dart that he threw when the Buccaneers busted coverage on 3rd and long. He hit Parker Washington right in the hands. I mean, perfect throw. That was not it. It was some of the conversions on 3rd and long where he's hitting these dagger routes, these end-breaking dig routes at 15 to 18 yards down the field, and he's fitting it into tight spaces on the proper shoulder. To me, Mac Jones showed that he had big-time talent. He has the ability to be a starting quarterback in this league, and the Jaguars should feel good about him as their potential number 2 quarterback going into the regular season. This showcase game, man, he did everything that you want to see as an evaluator. And the final thing that I would say stood out more than just like his arm talent and the passing ability, his energy and enthusiasm was contagious. His happiness on the second touchdown when he throws, look, he has to leave the game. He leaves the game. C.J. Beathard comes in. C.J. Beathard gets knocked around. Mac Jones has to go back in late in the 4th quarter. A lot of times it's hard to kind of refocus and steady your mind when you're in a situation like that. You're in the preseason. You almost have kicked the pads off. You've gone to relax mode. He jumps back in, and he is doggedly determined to get this team down the field. And he not only takes them down the field, but, man, he just shows just the poise and the precision to make a pass down the boundary to Brevin Easton for a touchdown. And as you're looking at the TV copy, when I was on the call, man, you could just see this dude as excited for Easton as he is for himself. Jumps into the arms of his teammates, full of enthusiasm and energy. I just love that. And I think his teammates really love how he gets down. That bodes well for him in his case as a quarterback too. But it wasn't just Mac Jones who showed up and showed out. I would say that it's a continuing theme throughout training camp. These young players, the next two players that I'm talking about, Parker Washington and Tank Bigsby, they have been the stars of training camp, and their training camp practice performances have translated into exceptional success in games. When I look at Parker Washington, he continues to dazzle. He had the touchdown pass that I talked about from Mac Jones. He's running the seam. He catches it, and it wasn't an easy catch because Mac got a little excited, kind of led him. Parker Washington made a great adjustment to stretch out, get both feet down, score the touchdown. You love that. And then I would just say, man, his quickness, option routes, breaking outside, getting the ball early. They open the game, getting it to him right away, letting him get into the mix and doing it. And so seeing him on that, and then the crossing routes where he's able to catch the ball, break a tackle, pick up a first down, he's terrific, man. He is different in terms of what he was last year. He's dialed in, he's focused. And I think the coaches have a better idea of how to utilize him to maximize his talents. He's not only, I would say, like on the team, but he is working towards securing a role. And I'll say this, Jamal Agnew was great in terms of being a change of pace weapon, a designated kind of big play guy. Parker Washington can be a better option in that role because he is showing that he has the goods as a wide receiver to be featured prominently as that number 4 receiver in this offense. If he's in the mix and being able to do that, he's going to make some plays, and it's only going to open up the field for the other guys on the perimeter. In the backfield, Tank Bigsby has been as advertised. There was a lot of excitement about Tank Bigsby last year when he was drafted in the second round. Watching him at Auburn, he was a physical downhill running back, ran through contact, finished guys with a violent manner. You love that. The Tank Bigsby that has showed up this year after a disappointing rookie campaign, put the ball on the ground a couple of times, just never appeared to have like confidence to take his game to the next level. Yeah, that changed this year, man. He looks like a potential RB1. He's tough. He's physical. He can catch the ball out the backfield. He can run it between the tackles. And he has what we look for in running backs, the competitive stamina to take a heavy workload. In a preseason game where guys barely play, this dude had 13 touches. 13 touches, 58 yards. On the surface, that's not a lot of production and those things. But to me, it's the way that he amassed that production, the physicality and toughness that he showed while running the football and being very decisive, hitting it between the tackles, catching the ball out the backfield, sometimes being aligned in empty formations on the outside and running hitch routes and being able to do some things. That's what RB1s do. That's what number 1 running backs do. Not a scat back, not someone who's a bit player. When I think about the combination of what Tank Bigsby can add as a physical in between the tackles runner, the growth and the continued evolution of Travis Etienne, this 1-2 punch that they have in the backfield can be really, really challenging to defend and can be really special in terms of helping this offense go to the next level. Overall, to me, the big 3, Mac Jones, Parker Washington, Tank Bigsby, they lived up to the hype. They continue to be exactly what many people talked about them being throughout camp. And if you're a coaching staff, you love seeing those guys that pop in practice, pop in the game. So kudos to Jones, Washington, and Bigsby for what they were able to do. Now, other things that stood out to me on offense. The offensive line, like early on, controlled the game. We talk about 3 drives with 10-plus plays, being able to kind of like control it and mash it. They ran the ball 38 times. I think they had maybe 140 rushing yards on the day. Yeah, 38 times, 140 rushing yards on the day. And the longest run was only a 12-yard run. So when you think about that, that's a bunch of body blows, just pelting the opponent, the Buccaneers, in the side of the gut with just these hammerhead runs from a bunch of different backs. Well, that falls on the offensive line. And even though the offensive line did a really solid job on the run game, they moved the ball, they moved the power, they created some lanes. I wouldn't say it was a dominant performance, but a very effective performance. You're excited to see that when it came to the run game. The issues that we have when it comes to looking at the run game and the offensive line and their performance, I worry about some of the second team guys that, look, sometimes these are flash plays that showed up, but Cooper Hodges, Devon Foster, Tyler Shatley, they had some problems up front when it came to the aggressive nature of the Buccaneers blitz defense. Sometimes they couldn't hold up in their one-on-ones. Sometimes they were just overwhelmed and smoked by a pressure package that the Buccaneers specifically used to target some vulnerable interior players. And to me, that's a bit of a concern if you're Doug Peterson, just trying to figure out, hey, man, if one of our guys goes down, if a Cam Little or Brandon Sheriff or knocking with a Mitch Morse goes down, how are we going to function and thrive? Without that, it's something that they need to continue to address throughout the week when it comes to getting ready for the Falcons. And when you have that mini break after the third preseason game and before the regular season game, really got to work hard on fixing that offensive line and some of the leakiness that showed up. From a defensive standpoint, I don't have any quote unquote standouts that kind of caught my eye, but I can say this about the defense. Ryan Nielsen has talked about simplifying the defense, and they can play fast and play physical. When I talked to Ventrell Miller before the game on Friday, he talked about that. We're going to play fast. We're going to play physical. We're going to get after it. They've simplified everything, so it's not a lot of thinking. It really comes down to effort and execution. They've done that, man. They are getting after it on defense, relentless energy and pursuit and all of those things that come along with playing really good defense. Like, they are animals. They nonstop, and their effort allows them to play through some of the mistakes that they may have when it comes to, just fitting in the gaps and sometimes losing their coverage and those things. But mentally, they've been good because you haven't seen egregious busts. You're not seeing guys run free down the middle of the field. They've been really good in their man-to-man dealing with all of that stuff. They've been really good up front, mixing in some blitzes and some traditional coverage plays that allow the front line to hunt. When you go back and you look at the sack totals, nothing crazy. They had 3 sacks, but man, they got to the quarterback. They were pretty consistent in terms of how often they got to the quarterback. And it's funny because, man, it ends up being the same names. Breland Speaks being able to get into the paint and get another sack. I mean, he's done that both of the weeks he's been around. He just kind of finds a way to get it done. And whether he's a gamer or not, whether he's a guy that can just turn it up on game day, practice doesn't look the same, he certainly is intriguing because the production stands out, and it stands out on tape. He's put it on tape in back-to-back games. What worries me on defense, just in watching that game, a little concerned about the run defense. It appeared, and it's crazy because the numbers don't back up what I felt when I was watching the game. It felt like the Jags couldn't contain the Buccaneers running game. We saw them rip off big play after big play after big play on a touchdown drive. We saw them give up 10-plus yard runs. But the funny thing is, when I felt like they were giving up these 10-plus yard runs, I look at the bottom line and the numbers, and it's nothing that you would fret about if you were a coach. 16 carries, 76 yards. I mean, longest play against them was 21 yards, which is too much. But, I mean, that's what you were dealing with. They averaged 4.8 yards a carry. You want to bring that down. But the running game hurt them a little bit, and it allowed the Bucs early to kind of dictate the terms and control the clock. And even though eventually the defense settled in and corralled it, at one point they had, 6 out of 7 possessions. It resulted in a 3-and-out. This defense finds a way to bounce back from adversity. I love the toughness. And once again, I'll talk about the effort and execution. Those things are great. One thing to keep an eye on, which was, I would say, maybe a weird development or just different. This was a game in which the starters didn't play. Most of the starters didn't play. But the Jaguars decided that they were going to play Roy Robertson Harris a little bit. Now, he played a little bit, didn't register anything, but he was certainly kind of like getting ready to do his thing. I don't know. Like, I just know they talked about him being in the rotation. They talked about him being a guy that was going to do it. Just keep an eye. Like, if there's anything weird just kind of going on, if that's going to be an issue or that going forward, like I don't know. Like, regardless, like just keep an eye on it. Anyway, so the defense overall, pretty solid. Young guys in the back end did a really, really good job. Jerry Jones, Christian Bradwell held up in coverage. You didn't see any egregious things. It didn't appear to have any issues at that part. And when you're a team that plays as much man-to-man as the Jags play, you like that you didn't see the deep ball. You like that you saw them frustrate Kyle Trask. You like the fact that they were able to contain what John Wolford was able to do on the perimeter. And that part just looks good from the defense. The only thing that I'll worry about is just the running game, because the running game was an issue last year, and the running game allows opponents to be able to control it. So we want to make sure we take care of that. We eliminate that. The tackling and the physicality at the point of attack just needs to continue to be solid. But overall, not bad, with the exception of the explosives in the running game. When it comes to the special teams, last week, first week of the season, preseason, we got excited about the return game. And the return game was good, not great. In this one, good in the terms of, look, we saw 2 kick returns by Gary Brightwell, 42 yards, average 20 yards of kick return. That's fine. The punt returns, Austin Tremmel, 3 returns, 19 yards, 6.3 return. Okay. But where the Jags really stood out is how they performed when they were kicking the ball. Logan Cook is an absolute all-star. He's a monster. He averaged 47.5 yards per kick, but it's not that. There was a series where I tracked. He had a 55-yard punt, a 59-yard punt, and a 65-yard punt that resulted in a fair catch that completely flipped the field. And when you have a weapon like Logan Cook, what it does is it gives you an opportunity to always set your defense up in favorable positions. So I love the fact we're talking about rattle those things off. Plus 53 times, and the returns were minimal. Love it, love it, love it, because you talk about either forcing fair catches or directing the kick out of bounds. Gotta love that. Cam Little, 2 for 2 on his field goals, long of 44, had 2 extra points, and young guy, drafted, a lot of swag and confidence, just his 21st birthday, all that other stuff. Dude is money. He is nails when it comes to knocking it through the upright and being able to kind of push it through. Love it, love it, love it. You got to like those things if you're Jaguars fans, because the kicking game matters. The kicking game really matters in big games when it's really, really tight and you need to nail one. It changes the game. And for the Jaguars last couple of years, man, they just haven't been able to find a reliable kicker that they could count on. When they reach the 30 to 35-yard line, they could get points. Cam Little appears to be a guy that's dependable and reliable as a place kicker. We're going to knock on wood and hope that he continues to be the guy that he's shown thus far. But it's a game changer, because if he can be money on any kick over 40 yards, just expands the scoring zone for the Jags. And as you know, points are coveted as a premium. And when you have a kicker that is a distance kicker with success and consistency, it just changes the equation when it comes to how you stack points to win games. Overall, I would say that if you're Doug Peterson and the coaching staff and you watch the tape, man, you feel great about where your team is heading into the final preseason game. This team has really bought into the style of play that they want on defense. They've really done a really good job of kind of changing and resetting the culture, the standards that they want to meet each week. They're constantly communicated and conveyed to every player, which is a little different when you hang around the team. And I will say that their best players' personalities are reflected in the leadership of the team. When I look at Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence, thinking about Foye Oluokun, Christian Kirk, some of the other guys, Evan Ingram, all of these guys have steady personalities, not a lot of fluctuations emotionally. And so this team comes off as a very mature, business-like team that is going to have a lot of success. We'll continue to track that. But man, so far so good. 2-0 in the preseason. More importantly, the way they play, it's a team that's going to get off to a fast start. So that's the podcast for the day. This is Bleav in Jaguars. You guys have done a really good job of reviewing, and subscribing to the podcast. We're going to continue to push it out in the community, make sure those guys can join the team. We're getting close to the regular season starting. We can go down to Miami. It's going to be hot for their opener. We want everyone on board. We need all of Duval to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. We need you guys to continue to look at the stuff that we're doing on the Bleav Network on YouTube and on Fubo. Catch the show on the network, see what we're doing, see what we're talking about. It's always fun when you guys look, watch, and leave comments. I promise you I'll do a better job of responding to the comments because I love getting the feedback. Until next time, I'm Bucky Brooks. This is Bleav in Jags. I'm out.